Let's chat about motivation in our homeschools. This is one of the most common conversation points that I have, especially when I first meet other homeschool moms in a coaching consultation. So the discussion goes something like this. How do I get my kiddo to be motivated to, and then you fill in the blank, it doesn't matter what it is, do something educational? Well, I don't like to answer that question because I know that the answer I'm going to give is never going to satisfy. I checked the first page of Google today on how to motivate your child, and I have tried all those things. I don't think they really work. Here's what my real thoughts are on motivation. I'm curious what you think, what your experience has been. I'd love to hear your stories, by the way. I asked that in the Facebook group, the Homeschool Mama Support Group, just moments ago, your stories about motivation. So I'm going to declare it straight away. I actually don't think you can motivate your child. Not true motivation, which I'm going to define as intrinsic motivation. And I think it's kind of unwise when we do try to internally motivate kids by giving them the carrot, the carrot and the stick. If we give them a reward, then they will be motivated, right? Not really. They will sometimes do the thing that we want them to do because they want this carrot. And we're all externally motivated like that at times. Now, before I continue, I want you to hear what I believe about, well, a few things so you understand where I'm coming from before I share a few of my thoughts to consider when your goal is to motivate your homeschool kiddo. I believe kids were born to be autonomous. And I didn't know that, that's for sure. Did not understand that in the beginning, but I did come to understand it because I had kids. And when you have kids long enough, you sometimes have a compliant kid who does make you feel like everything you ask them to do is just wonderful. And so they'd happily go along with whatever you're suggesting because they want to do what you want them to do. And then you have other kids. And it's useful because you will learn that other kids have a mind of their own. They're autonomous. They are naturally wanting to do things on their own terms. I believe, were meant to follow their internal drum. I believe kids have a unique reason for being here on the planet. They have a unique reason and purpose, and if we would allow everybody to fully embrace those reasons, our world, our planet would be a whole lot better off. I believe that each of our kids has a unique talent or talents and skills and aptitudes, and they were meant to be in our homes for different reasons. And we need to learn about each of them. As homeschool moms, we need to learn about them and help to facilitate them in whatever way is necessary so they can become more of them, so they can do more of what they were meant to do on this planet for the benefit of all of us. That's what I believe. Here's a few thoughts to consider when you want to motivate your homeschool kid. So if homeschool kids have large swaths of time to explore, they will, eventually. Now, I know that seems hard to imagine if you have a child at home or in school, and they have had most of their activities dictated for a very long time. And when they come home from school, they don't want to do educational things. They don't want to do their homework, or they don't want to learn, or you fill in the blank. And see, the thing is, they are having everything around them prescribed. So if everything around them is prescribed and they feel like they have to do something, they might not want to come home to follow some other educational rabbit trail, but you might not be seeing a lack of curiosity and motivation. You might be seeing a child that is accustomed to doing what they have to do when they have to do it. And then when they have time to not have to do it, they don't want to do more prescribed stuff. So it might benefit you if you are a family that has come from a schooled environment, coming home to homeschool, to deschool your homeschool. And if you're curious what deschooling is, you can write the words or type the word deschool in the comment section, and I will make sure that you can learn everything you need to learn about deschooling your homeschool. Have you ever considered, this is my second thought, that you want your child to potty train, right? You want to potty train, but you can bring her to the potty, but you cannot make her pee. We can do all sorts of different things, like require our kids to sit at the table, to engage some, I don't know, Usborne Encyclopedia history, and read 10 pages of that history encyclopedia, then write out a 2-page narrative on what you've learned from that 10 pages of reading. And maybe you could even pull a few words, 10 spelling words from your reading, and then use some of those historical details on a timeline. And those are all things that I did with my kids. Learned a lot of them through my classical-based homeschooling in the early years that eventually turned into a classical unschool, if I can call it that. And you can bring them to the table, expect them to do certain things. Ta-da! The educational deed for history is done today. They've learned from a historical period, but do they care? Will they remember? And did you just make them put in time like it was a job? That's not real motivation. It's checking an educational box. You can require your child to learn ancient history as you have, but that doesn't mean that she'll learn about ancient history. And case in point, if you are like me, maybe you aren't, but maybe you were back in the high school days when we did history, World War history. I remember there was a period of World War history. I just remember thinking, I don't want to be in this class. I don't like this. I am not a history person. And then fast forward a whole bunch of years and I'm in my homeschool and I loved history. I learned so much because I didn't learn very much before that. And I could understand why it was so valuable and just interesting. So it turns out you can make them do certain things. Sometimes. Some kids won't let you, and some kids will happily go along with the homeschool plan, the compliant ones, but you will not necessarily make them be motivated to learn. You can, my third thought, you can lead them to a book, but you can't make them read. You can strew learning opportunities. It's I don't know if you've heard of the concept of strewing. It's an unschooling concept where you can throw things around, go to the library, pick up a bunch of project packages or, themed unit study baskets or just a variety of books and throw them around your home in hopes that your child will find interest in them. And though I do think there's a lot of merit to make a educational rich environment, and have interesting things around and sometimes take them away so that people forget about them to bring them back and discover something new. Novelty is good. Still, it can be a kind of a passive-aggressive maneuver, an unschooly passive-aggressive maneuver to perhaps harness our child's inner curiosity and motivation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can lead a child to a book, but you cannot always make them read. Sometimes they will, though. The fourth thought I had is that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. When we homeschool mamas provide our kids a balance of social time and solitude and meaningful eye-to-eye connection with each of them, and our kids, if they're left to their own devices, will likely engage in meaningful activities. So we need to give them the opportunity to share their thoughts and interests and for us to really listen to them. Ask them what they want to do. When we foster open communication, when we really listen to their interests, when we really notice what they are naturally gravitating toward, we're respecting and honoring their autonomy, we're empowering them to discover their inner motivations. Because horses need to drink, they just don't want to be told when and how. And yeah, we'll just go with horses are the kids and the kids are horses, even though kids aren't really horses, but kids really like to learn and horses like to drink. And anyways, my next point. Number 5, you can't make them motivated. You can't force a carrot in front of them and make them want to eat it. You can surely try, and I surely have. By the way, I have tried, or at least I've tried. You might force external motivation, but you won't create internal motivation. I do think there's something to be said about creating screen time restrictions. Just hear me out for a second if you are one of those screen time all the time people. Just creating screen time restrictions so that kids have an opportunity to be bored. Sometimes. If we think it's useful for our minds to take screen breaks, and I have yet to meet anyone that thinks that we shouldn't, well, obviously it might be good for growing minds too. If we remove screens and create an environment where sometimes boredom happens, that means that we're not filling our kids' days with tons of activities and all the cool extracurricular things that they could be doing. When they get bored, they will eventually seek out activities, get creative, potentially leading them to learn about new interests or new topics. And in my experience, they are almost never the topics of interest that you would think that they would do. I remember one time coming home to discover my son ripping apart fabric, various greens and browns and gray shades of fabric, and taping them, and gluing them, and sewing them onto another giant costume. I think it was a Spider-Man costume or something. And he was making his own ghillie suit for his birthday party. He was going to have a laser tag party in the backyard, so he had to have his own ghillie suit. And if you don't know what that is, well, maybe I'll send you to a different video where I actually show you. I do a little homeschool mama show and tell. Ask me. I suggest that you give yourself and your kids a whole lot of white space, because we, with that white space, do some really interesting creative things. Be an interested, creative, curious, productive person yourself. Lead by example, cultivate your own passions. When your kids see your enthusiasm and dedication, they are more likely to be inspired and motivated to pursue their own interests too. Now, caveat, sometimes we need to do things that aren't motivating, like driving on the right side of the road. It's not an option in my continent. There are some things at times that we need to expect of our kids, and I know that, and I'm going to say that out loud. I believe that sometimes kids need to do things because we ask them to do them. And so sometimes there are, for various reasons, non-negotiables, and waiting for them to be motivated, well, anyway, I won't be doing that. And I know there's a lot of other mothers that aren't always waiting for that motivation to come. However, there are times when we need them to be internally motivated, to want to engage us or honor us in something. And if we are always expecting them to be doing things right here, right now, that we're not negotiating ever, we're going to get pushback. We're going to get this. Please, no, stop asking. Please, no more strewing. I see you, unschool mom. Here you are strewing again. Okay, so they can tell. They know. And if you want them to be motivated or engage you without a push-pull engagement, then I encourage you to not always try to force motivation. That's my caveat. So remember, if you're an interested, curious, creative, productive person, your children will likely be too. So I hope that these strategies will help you unlock, or at least consider, your thoughts on how you can engage a discussion on motivation with your homeschool moms, in your homeschool co-op, or maybe here in the comments section. I would love to hear your thoughts, your experience about motivating your kids, but I hope that the opportunity to engage things differently will help build or unlock their innate potential so that they can follow their curiosities, and there really is a foundation laid for lifelong learning for your child and for you. Thanks.